Welcome to the Minnesotan Pod. Today we have a visiting Minnesotan with us, Harvard women's head coach Laura Bellamy, a Duluth native who graduated from Denfield High School. After her time in Duluth, she spent 4 years at Harvard, where she is now. She amassed an impressive 1.64 goals against average and a .921 save percentage for the Crimson. After graduation, Bellamy was an assistant coach at Harvard and UMD for 9 seasons. Both teams made NCAA appearances, a Frozen Four appearances, including 2 national runner-ups, one for Harvard in 2015 and another for UMD in 2022. Welcome to the show, Coach Bellamy.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah.
Always wanted to be in this room with the jerseys and everything.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're a fan enough for you've seen our stuff and know that about this room. People are fascinated by the jerseys.
What they don't know, that I now know, is how many there are to swap in and out. I'm impressed by the collection.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, there's 3 or 4 racks of them out there in our growing collection. We haven't hit every school. And when we do hit every school, we will then move on to defunct schools.
Oh,
that's the
I like
my
that
Southwest one. That's defunct.
I like that
we
plan.
got Annandale. Like Annandale had a high school program. I'm like, should I buy this? I'm like, yes, buy this. Danny Art from our boys pod. He's the true collector, and he's on eBay every day, and that's how we get a lot of them. And then a lot of schools like you said, oh, I wanted to bring you a jersey. I'm like, we love when people bring us jerseys.
On it. Love it.
All right, so you're here for an hour or a little bit, maybe a little bit less. It's your birthday, too. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
This will air after. So I'm the same way as you. I don't like – I forbid people from tweeting out that it's my birthday.
Yep.
Because then you just get overwhelmed with birthday
and it's
wishes.
it's really nice. It is
really
nice.
It is really nice, but it's like it just becomes overwhelming, So I'm the same way. So we will air this at least one day after this. And I don't think people will listen closely enough. We won't tweet out your birthday.
Appreciate that.
That would be a problem. All right. Okay, so let's get into Laura, and I like to learn about your family, okay? So mom and dad, I think you mentioned before that your dad played for Duluth East.
He did.
That's super cool. So that's a starter right there. But where do you fit in your family? How many siblings?
Yep. I have an older brother.
Okay, and that's it?
Yep.
Okay, what's his name?
Corey.
All right.
3 years older.
So he obviously played. Dad said, I played hockey. You're going to play hockey.
And my
right?
mom played, too.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
This is awesome. What's her name?
Well, her name's Andrea. She goes by Anda. She played. So my dad was East class of 75. Very proud. Still will throw the letter jacket on every once in a while. Which Duluth East, great letter jacket, red, gray sleeves.
That's classic.
Really, it's styled in. So state tournament 75. I think they won consolation. Big D. My mom played too, and so her team, she was Lower Chester neighborhood of Duluth.
Yeah.
In order to have a girls' team, it was ages 9 to 17.
I believe it.
Which is pretty incredible, and she played on that team growing up.
And did they play against other girls' parks?
Yeah, but
That's
again,
cool.
you had to be such an age range in order to even make a team. So it's really cool to see how far it's come since then. And then my brother was a goalie at Duluth Denfeld.
Was your dad a goalie?
My dad was a D. Big D.
You said that. All right.
And my brother was a goalie.
How did you both be goalies? Well, I know why you became a goalie, because your brother was a goalie.
So, and it's funny, right? Because the story is usually, my siblings, shot pucks at me. For me, it's my brother was a goalie and I wanted to be like him. And it worked out because then the pads could get passed along,
and he was 3 years older?
So he always got the new pair and then I got
Yeah. Hand-me-downs. I'm the youngest. I know all about hand-me-downs. I know all about
it. No complaints. He made some pretty cool sets over the years. But 3 years older. So he was a senior in high school and I was a freshman. So we got 1 year together.
Colored pads era too? Yeah.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
All colored? Oh, sorry. And not that old.
And we were maroon and gold. Piedmont, our neighborhood was maroon and gold. Denfeld was maroon and gold. So we had some cool.
I'm going to say something controversial here.
Mm-hmm.
I think Piedmont is the best park of all of them. I've been to them all.
I don't find that controversial at all.
It will be to the rest of the Duluth listeners. They will be. These Glen Avon people are really proud.
So my dad's Glen Avon.
I know.
Yeah.
I know he might not like me for that.
Yeah.
But I think it's just the coolest thing I've ever seen. We interviewed Andy Larson, a Denfeld kid, for our high school player of the year. And I'd been there in the summer, but I'm like, he goes, where do you want to do the interview? I'm like, what park are you from? He's like, Piedmont. I'm like, we're doing it at Piedmont. And he goes, my dad has the key. So we did the interview with Andy at the park
So
house.
many great outdoor rinks in Duluth. And there always was when I was growing up, and they're still, there's maybe not as many, but they're still.
Congdon just went down.
Shape. Yeah, but that's a great rink too.
Yeah.
I mean, and you usually see ice still at some point in the winter.
Right, right. Okay, so Piedmont, and then there's on the top of the hill.
The upper
Where
rink.
did you skate? Where did you skate?
So there were three options. Lower rink, that was more for games. Upper rink.
Okay, that's kind of where your rink ratted.
And then upper also they called it the pleasure rink, but so you could figure skate.
Yeah.
But all of them. Oh, wherever you could find spot.
As a goal, here's a question I've never asked before. If you're a goalie, you didn't go put your pads on down at the rink when you were just screwing around. So did you skate out? Did you have 2 pairs of skates?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I did a lot of skating. And I took pride in being a good skater,
right.
And that it felt like that helped being a goalie. But yeah, as a kid, it's just, hey, I want to go rink rat and skate around. And I would say if you ever put on the pads for outdoor hockey, you just had to know, okay, we are playing a pickup game. There will be enough people. We will play, because otherwise you got all this stuff on, and then 3 people show up. And there's, if you weren't going to play a game, it didn't make sense to play goalie. So I was happy to play goalie, but most of the time, we could actually walk down to the rink from our house.
Yeah.
So, just throw a quick bag together.
What did your parents do for a living?
So my mom is an editor. She works at the University of Minnesota Duluth in the Natural Resource Research Institute.
Really?
So, yeah, she still does that today. And she had worked at an elementary school in Duluth a little bit when I was growing up too. And my dad, he for almost 35 years was the manager at Hellsburg Diamonds in the Miller Hill Mall.
Stop it.
Yeah. He could have a conversation with absolutely anybody. So he was
a perfect job.
Oh yeah, it was great. And yeah, everybody seems to know my dad from those years of they're going through people used to go to the mall.
Oh yeah, they still do. They still do.
But it was that was where you went, and yeah.
And what does your brother do? What's his?
He's at North Star Ford in Duluth.
Okay.
Yeah, and car sale. When I first moved back to Duluth in 2015, that was like the first order of business was
get you a car.
He was like, "You're buying a car for me." Okay.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, so we'll get to the Duluth days here. I mean, I just love hearing kind of who you are and those professions. Kind of like, okay, but how does that align with your professions? Because you're a teacher, you're a salesman. You really are. You're in sales, believe it or not. Even though you're at Harvard, how hard is it to sell there? But there's also research involved. There's a lot of things that your parents and your siblings end up being kind of a framework for who you are.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. Yeah. And probably more so just the things that we valued over, during our childhood and our whether it was hockey or not, just youth sports and what that did for us and being part of a team and really valuing that. And just we still talk about all the trips, whether it was softball, hockey, baseball, whatever sport, it's so ingrained in our family. That was so much part of what we did and what we enjoyed and, things we learned along the way, but just we still harken back to all that. So I think we always appreciated that in youth sports and, getting into coaching is sort of a product of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me about your Harvard years. You played, when I was studying your stats, you didn't have great stats. I mean, you had good stats. I read them here, but like the elite prospect stats were a little bit fuzzy. I was kind of making up those numbers there. But it looked like some years you had all the games and some years you split games. How was that as a student athlete to never know what your status was going to be?
Yeah, I think it sort of followed our team. So my freshman year, it was me and a senior goalie, which was great. It was great to be on a team with 2 goalies my freshman year. So I got so much work in practice. Our senior goalie, Christina Kessler, was one of the best goalies in women's hockey at the time. Played on the Canadian national team. So I mean, I went in knowing she's gonna play probably every game. She actually tore ACL at the end of January, and I played the rest of the way.
That's how you got the numbers.
Yeah. So, but otherwise, I probably wouldn't have played much that year. Yeah. And it was really about getting better in practice, and it was. I mean. It was very clear early on I had a jump to make, and she was such a good teacher. She was really fit off the ice, very prepared, and I learned a lot from her that first fall. But then I also ended up getting games, which was relatively, I was ready for it, but not necessarily expected going in. Then my sophomore year, was essentially expected to take over the net, and not my best year. I didn't have a great
It wasn't bad,
fall.
though.
It was okay. looking back, I probably just played too much hockey between, that summer, and I was a little burnt out maybe going in and just didn't perform how I really wanted to. So ended up playing a lot of games that year, but also was in a little bit of a competition. Then my junior year, I think played every minute of every game.
Yep.
Partly because we were limited on numbers, but by then I knew what was expected and was ready. And then my senior year, we brought in Emmerich Mashmeyer, was a freshman, now a Canadian Olympian, really big recruit at the time, and it was great competition. And I played Friday nights, she played Saturday nights.
Yeah, it looked like it split. It looked like you went in your stats. It was like half, full, half.
Yeah, kind of like that. So, and that was, my senior year was really fun. As much as I didn't play as much in the games, practices were very competitive. I worked extremely hard, but Mash was, she came in just so talented. And so it was fun to, she made me better, I made her better, and we had a really good year. And, it was a great way to finish it off.
All right. So let's go back to your first I'm at Harvard moment, right? Like, so you were recruited to go there. You were obviously a good student at Denfeld. When you got there, what was your Mark Zuckerberg moment? What was your like, oh my God, I'm at Harvard right now? Maybe it was the first day. Maybe it was before you got there. What was that moment?
Yeah, honestly.
Do you know what I mean? It had to be.
Yeah, what was so great about the first day was our class. We had 7 kids in our class, and Kelsey Romatoski, actually fellow Minnesotan, started walking around and going to everyone's room who was moving in, and we ended up as like the 7 of us finally moving around to each other's rooms to see them, and then went to the dining hall together. So, that was just such if you don't have that, if you're not going and being part of a team right away, I imagine it's much more difficult, that transition. Yeah. So that's one of my first memories, but this is Harvard moment, it might sound cheesy, but I actually mean this. It still happens to me when you walk through Harvard Yard. It's just an amazing campus, and it has a feel, and it just comes to mind. Like, there's the people who have walked through, these sidewalks and these halls. It's just surreal and a little bit like, is this really, am I here right now? Does this, and so that definitely happened early on, where it was like, wow, this is happening, because you work so hard and you go through the process, and then you're finally there, and it's like, okay, now I'm here and I got to do it. And it's a little intimidating at times.
And the thing is, you were like 18 years old, like your brain wasn't like fully developed. So you're still kind of figuring out yourself too, who you were,
Totally.
Plus now I'm at this really overwhelming campus. I spent a day there with Casey Dornbach in 2022, and maybe it's just Casey, but maybe it was all Harvard students. But the kid was like a kid in the candy store, showing me everything. And he was just about to graduate, and he was like, "Oh, let's go over here. We're gonna go over here." And we spent basically like 3 or 4 hours on the campus tour. He showed me everything, and it was like, this is it was fun to see how excited he was about the school in his 4th year.
Right. There's so much history. You're in Boston, in Cambridge. There's the buildings, have been there for hundreds of years, and there's just a lot to show. And I think what's also neat about Harvard is it's really not super expansive, and you can go from one end of campus to the other in
real quick,
a 15 to 20 minute walk. So it is small. It has that tight knit feel a little bit too. But it's really fun to show people, and until you're there, it's really hard to. You can certainly look at pictures and videos online, but until you're there, you can't really quite get that feeling.
I was just blown away. He's like, "Oh, this is total Hogwarts right here." Yeah. He was like, there's some dining hall.
Oh, the dining hall is unbelievable.
Is that the only one?
Or that's the freshman dining hall.
Super old,
like
really old, like straight out of
It's really neat.
Back to playing at Harvard. What were some of your greatest memories there?
We had some really good teams. You do go to some of the on ice success. My first year we played in the NCAA tournament. We went back my senior year, which was those stand out. The Bean Pots. Now the Bean Pots at TD Garden, which is incredible, and I think a great step for women's hockey. But what was also neat in the past was it was at each school. So in your 4 years, you went to each school to play it. So my first year,
so you host it,
right. So my first year we hosted.
Even if you're in the third place game, it stays in your building.
Yeah.
Okay,
so that was how it used to be, and my freshman year, we hosted it and we won it. And that was the best. It's the pride of Boston. It's that competition. So that really stands out. And that time of year, that's what Boston talks about is the Bean Pot in February. For us it was the first 2 Tuesdays in February, and that's on everybody's calendar. So those memories stand out on the ice, and I had a great experience. Like, we had so much fun as a team, and obviously we were also getting a great education, but we had some really tight knit groups and still really close to so many of my teammates.
All right, so let's go back to the Bean Pot. Have you ever experienced the Bean Pot where, hey, we kind of stunk and winning the Bean Pot propelled us, or we were really hot and we stunk in the Bean Pot and it hurt us, because it's very emotional.
It's really emotional. It's really unique.
Yeah.
You're in college hockey. You're used to playing Friday, Saturday nights.
Right.
Maybe you have a game here or there that's off of that schedule. But for us in Boston, for all 4 teams, it is every year. It comes on those 2 Tuesdays or Mondays, whatever it ends up being. And yeah, you have to be prepared. You have, as a coach, you have to kind of set up how that month will look.
I was going to say, how do you prepare? You have to prepare differently a little bit.
Sometimes we were playing, 5 or 6 games in 11 or 12 days. So
do you ever have games Friday, Saturday, and then have to go play Tuesday?
Yeah.
That would be hard.
Yeah, so
I would bet the men who play on Mondays don't play those weekends.
They used to. They've made some adjustments to that. But yeah, it's a lot of games in a short amount of time, and so you can definitely see it propel a team, or something. I'm not thinking right now of a time that it made you tank or anything like that, but I'm sure there are those years where it's like, oh man, the Bean Pot, we really kind of lost our luster or whatever. And I think you could say that about any subset of games in a season, but because it's midweek and like you said, it's so emotional, you want to win it so badly. There's as a player, it's really fun, and then as a coach, there's a lot that goes.
And there's
into
more
that.
Press, there's more fans, there's
everything.
Everything multiplies,
which is super
in that game.
fun. But yeah, it's an important part of the season, especially if it happened in November, maybe it's a little bit different, but it's in February. It always feels like it's kind of preparing you for playoff hockey. So,
all right. Yeah. So what age were you? Was it when you were 22 or was it when you were 12? You said, hey, I want to be a coach.
22.
No way. Yeah. So, okay, we'll get to how you got into coaching, because obviously it's when Coach Stone had her Olympic year, and they were open a space at Harvard, and that's how you coached there. But when you were a junior at Harvard, what were you like? I'm going to go be a school teacher. I'm going to go be this. I'm going to be an accountant. What was your major? Where were you career tracking?
Yeah. So I was pre-med in terms of taking all my pre-med requirements so that I could go to med school. My concentration was history of science, which at the time I was really interested in. It allowed me to do a lot of writing. So it was a little bit different from all
Sounds
the
a lot
math
like your
and
mom.
science. Yeah.
A little bit.
There's kind of I like math, but I also like to write. So it was I had my pre-med courses, and then I had sort of this humanities side, and that was also hopefully going to help on my application, where I was able to do different things versus you can major or concentrate, whatever you want to call it, in biology and still have a really good pre-med application. Right. But it was just another element. But that wasn't necessarily why I did it. But that was kind of the track I was on. And then when I was in my senior year was when I decided I wanted to either coach or teach for 1 to 2 years before I did that. And so most likely at the time, what I wanted to do was coach or teach for a year and then spend a year on the MCAT and applications and all of that stuff and then go. So as it turned out, I applied to a lot of different teaching and coaching jobs, and the one that I ended up, being offered and wanting to take was to stay at Harvard and coach for a year. And then,
so you got your 1 year.
I got my 1 year plus.
Right. Well, yeah, but it worked out perfect with the Olympic year for 14. You're like, I can do this and see if I like it. And obviously you liked it. Yeah,
and it's funny because going in, I wanted to do that and then move back into med school. I just wanted to say like, I taught or coached, because I applied to a lot of prep schools out there and different jobs. So it was more just about being able to do that for a year and have that experience. And then so I didn't realize I would like it so much and stay in it, but
yeah, okay. All right, so you get in. What was the kind of like your Harvard moment? What was your coaching moment? Like, think I want to do this forever?
That's a good question. So had my first year at
Or
Harvard.
maybe it was a series of events. It could be just like, hey, we did this and, you know.
I think what stands out is I did that first year, turned into 2. Then after 2 years at Harvard, I ended up coming back to Duluth to coach at UMD when Maura Kroll got the head coaching job. And that's when I thought I would only do it for a couple of years. And then,
really?
Yeah. And I didn't necessarily.
So you're already in 2 years as you weren't like a GA. You were like a
assistant
paid coach.
Yeah.
So you were making a living at coaching. And let's not kid ourselves. That's a really impressive resume as a 24-year-old.
Yeah, so when I appreciate that. When I came back to Duluth, it was 2 years in.
And then now you're at UMD, which is one of the top 5 programs in the country. Like, you have a really good resume for being so young.
Yeah, it was. I was really fortunate to have those opportunities. And when I came back to Duluth, I was excited. It was great. I never knew if I would necessarily come back to Duluth. It was such a great opportunity. And what was really interesting was that was kind of a turning point in terms of, okay, now we're going to have scholarships. It's going to be a different league, a different everything, just to kind of see, okay, do I really like coaching, or do I like that I've been able to stay at Harvard a little bit longer than I expected,
right.
So that was going to kind of be when I would find out. And I went in kind of thinking, I'll do this for a couple of years and then we'll see. But I think what I found out was I did really love coaching, no matter what the league was and if you had scholarships or not, whatever it is. I had a great experience and found that I really enjoyed coaching.
You weren't the assistant head coach when you arrived there, were you?
No.
Okay. But you eventually moved into that role.
I think it was in 2018 or 2019.
Yeah. Okay. So were you the recruiter?
Yes. Well, we're all recruiters.
I know, but like there's some coaches, staffs were like, you're going to spend more time on the road than the other 2 staff members,
I think we knew coming into Duluth, and Maura was really involved in recruiting, but I think the way she set it up in 2015 when I came to Duluth was, you'll be heavy on the recruiting coordinator. That'll be a big piece of your job and your role. So, and I recruited a lot at Harvard, but I wasn't the recruiting coordinator. So that was kind of a step in that way, and really good for me in my career at that point.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I got to ask the question. I set you up for this one. Goalies. Well, first of all, goalies are a little bit weird. I don't think you're as weird as most goalies I've met before. So that's a compliment to you.
Thank you.
But they see the ice differently. They've seen the ice north and south. Most people see the game east and west, for lack of better direction. Yeah. Is north and south a better way to see the game?
I don't know if it's a better. It's such a unique place to watch the game from.
Okay.
And I think until you're a goalie and you stand in there for 60 minutes, you don't necessarily understand that, But I think you put it really well, and a lot of people don't say it that way. Goalies see it north-south. Players essentially play the game east-west. And obviously the game is played in all directions. Yeah. So it's I don't necessarily know that one's better or better than the other, but I do think they're very different perspectives. And it's really why it's so important for goalies to have conversations about that with players on their team, because you can offer such different perspectives to each other. But I certainly feel as a coach, it helped in terms of, you're in there watching the game unfold in front of you for 60 minutes, and that's essentially what you do as a coach too.
Yeah.
So it's unique, and I think it's why you see goalies in coaching, and
a lot of them.
Yeah, and also a lot of players. But I think that's what goalies have, that perspective that's a little bit different.
All right. So Patrick Waugh, when he got into professional coaching, kind of became famous for pulling the goalie really early.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of almost like a verb. Yeah, I did the Patrick Waugh, like they did that, right? Like, do you find yourself, are you a goalie puller?
I love pulling the goalie early. Yeah.
I love you.
Right on.
I love you. I
because
love that.
Here's the thing. You're fighting at the point that you need to pull the goalie and score a goal. All you're fighting is the clock.
Right. Yep.
So you want to put yourself in a pretty good position with the clock, and not, because it used to be you'd wait until there's like a minute.
1 minute.
Yeah. Now I'm like 3.5. I mean, it depends on the score.
Goals. Okay. Well, and you also have to read the game too. But like, if you're not, if this, let's just say in a typical game, the shots were 20-20.
Yeah.
And it's fairly even game.
Yeah.
Then I think, and I don't mean shots, but like chances and all that, like, yeah, then maybe lesser time. But like, if we're not getting any opportunities with even strength, why in the world is it going to magically? It's not going to magically happen.
I think we're on the same page on that. Because,
okay, and the other one is the face-offs. Like, this is my biggest pet peeve for goalie pulls. Let's wait until we get the puck, and then we'll pull the goalie. Biggest pet peeve of them all. You're going to get the puck.
Yeah.
Because you have the extra attacker on the puck.
That should be your mindset.
You're at 60. I would say you're at 66% chance in a 50-50 battle when it's 2-on-1.
Right. I mean, good math right there. But I'm with you. There's so much in terms of where it is, who your centers are, where, all those things, what zone you're in. But generally, I agree with you. And I do think it speaks to, at a certain point, there has to be a mindset to it. So we have 6, and as a result of that, like, we're going to come up with the puck. Even if you don't win the initial draw, like, go get it back, put numbers on the puck, and come up with it, But I like to pull the goalie. I think it's so circumstantial, but if you've gone a whole game, you're in a 1-0 game, and you haven't really created, then I'm looking to pull somewhere in the 3s.
I agree. With you. Let's start making it happen. And it also becomes kind of a mindset, like, okay, we're shorthanded now. The other team gets a mindset of they're starting to own the puck, and all of a sudden you get confidence. I agree with you. Yeah. All right, so let's get to Harvard. As a coach, you were a student there, an assistant coach there, but now you have like the Landry family. I mean, you are like, you're it. Like, there's not a lot of Division I programs at your school. So there are, how many Division I programs
are
there?
We have 42 sports.
I know, but
42 Division I sports.
Is basketball is, right?
Yeah, everyone. Yep.
NCAA Division I.
Yep.
Hockey is obviously men's, women's, but like they're all Division I.
All Division I. Yeah.
Football is not technically Division I.
Division
sort of.
I FCS.
Is it?
So football.
Do they ever play playoffs? I never see the Ivies in the playoffs.
Yeah, so like they're playing for the Ivy League.
Yeah. There's
so
like.
And maybe football.
But, okay, I will say this.
Animal.
Like, the 2 programs at your school that realistically win or make a run at national titles are your men's and women's hockey programs.
Yeah, and we have other sports.
Am I wrong?
Well, we have a lot of sports that have a lot of success. Our squash team has won national championships. Our fencing team just won a national championship.
It's an amazing sport, by the way.
Not
a good spectator sport, but it's a hard sport.
It's a great sport. Fencing just won the national championship. Track and field has had a ton of success.
Really?
Cross country, skiing. So there is a lot of success. But I think in terms of where we are, and you're in New England, hockey's a big deal.
Yeah.
Like men's and women's hockey we expect to have success and have strong histories of that. And I think there's really good hockey within the ECAC, but the Ivy League too has all the schools in the Ivy League are. Want to be good at hockey. So
yeah, it's true. It's really good hockey. How hard is it to when girls come to your campus to convince them to come there? I mean, you must have some recruiting challenges.
I think, just like any place, it's really important to filter through, by the time they're coming to campus, like, what are you looking for? For us, like, we want hockey players who want to get a really good education and go to a really good school. So by the time they come to campus, hopefully those things have been sorted out. And then, you let things speak for themselves. I think we have Harvard was we've been around since 1636, so the history is long. The buildings are incredible. I think in terms of the education, like, you're going to get a fantastic education, and we're in Cambridge, right next to Boston, and there's just so much going on. It's a really fun place to be in terms of getting a job after graduation, whether that's right away or if you're going to have a long hockey career and then do something. There's tons of options in Boston, a lot of networking that goes on. So we have a lot there. But yeah, by the time kids come to campus, I do think, and this is the case anywhere, it's important to have kind of filtered through, okay, this is going to make some sense for you. And now let's see, do you like it? How does it feel? And the relationships are really what it comes back to with the coaching staff.
All right, here's the $1 million question, right? Do athletes have a different set of requirements for admissions?
No.
What?
No.
Come on.
So the way it works is that, we're recruiting student athletes and we're saying, okay, here's who we want to play for women's hockey.
Right.
But they go through the admissions process just like anybody else.
Really? They don't get flagged?
Well,
I'm not saying they have to get, they don't.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, but I've heard, again, from people who played there that they had if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but if you can get 28 on your ACT versus most everyone else gets to 36 on their ACTs, like 20, it's not bad, right?
Yeah.
But like they do, not like exceptions, but
so the way to look at it is
this is what I want.
How
do I look
at it?
Like,
are there different requirements?
And I'm not
the
saying
requirements are the same. Your application is the same. You're going to be doing standardized tests. You're going to do all these things. But the really what I have always appreciated about Harvard admissions is they look at the full body of work. So being an elite hockey player is an important part of looking at the whole person.
Yep.
As is, I went to school with one of the best opera singers in the world and, or a really great musician or an actor. There's all these different things, and that's a big part of the application.
Physical skill.
Well,
I mean, if you have an opera voice, that's a physical skill, just like skating or fencing or squash. Those are physical skills,
and they're part of that. The application includes a lot of different things, an interview and all these pieces. And I think ultimately it's they want really well-rounded people who value education, are going to put their best foot forward academically, and also they probably do something else that they're really good at that they're bringing to the Harvard community. So the way that works athletically is, we all obviously, okay, here's a class. We're going to need this many players. We go out and recruit. And when they go in for admission, they are being recruited as a women's ice hockey player or whatever sport it is. And that's part of the application. So, and a certain amount of athletes are going to be admitted to the school every year in order to
and there's got to be so that leads to this next question, right? Like, you have to, before you even really engage, you have to know what their grades are. Do they submit their grades so we're coming up on June 15th.
Yeah.
Do they submit their grades to you? Can they submit in that whole process? I'm more education, right?
Yeah.
So
that's always part of the recruiting process is, seeing what their transcript looked like in high school. And, it's probably part of the process in most places.
Was it like that at UMD? And I'm not ripping UMD,
yeah,
I mean, UMD is a good school, but it's not Harvard.
Yeah, it's always part of the process, I think, to see a transcript, and it doesn't mean it needs to be perfect, but it's important to see that.
Got to be pretty good though.
For sure.
Harvard.
Yeah, it's you got to show.
Good.
I think what it comes down to is really valuing education, valuing your academics, putting your best foot forward academically, challenging yourself with your class load. And again, maybe your sophomore year, something didn't go as well, but then you showed your junior and senior year what that looked like. That's important over time. But I think college coaches are asking for transcripts and wanting to see, you've got to be able to.
When does that process happen?
Is
it on the June 15th?
Yeah, that sort of starts it, right?
6 weeks,
so
right?
You're starting. That's when you're starting the process and able to talk to players, and that's part of the.
For you guys, for women's hockey, is it the first contact ever is June 15th?
You can send questionnaires before then and things like that.
But
that's
men's, it's January 1st. That's why. So your January 1st is this in a couple weeks.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
gotcha. So
yes.
you're just barely getting to know these players, where the men are getting a 6 month.
Yep, it's a little bit. It's just a different timeline. But it's always part of the picture and seeing what it looks like. And so, for us, we want really good hockey players who also value education and want to go to a place where they're going to get a great education and put their best foot forward. So it'll always be a piece of it. The biggest thing is you don't want to set someone up not to be successful too.
Right.
So
it's
part it's just always going to be
and
a part of it.
And that does happen. Did you ever see that happen when you were in school, where you have a kid come there or do they vet it pretty well?
I consider it a huge part of my responsibility to do that vetting. Yeah. And there really that doesn't come to mind. And a big part of my experience was we were so supportive of each other. We did a lot of different, I think our class of 7, we all had different majors, but, we were really supportive in terms of holding each other accountable on the ice and in practice, but then it was like, okay, we're going back, we're studying here, we're doing this. Like it was an environment where we all wanted to do the best we could in both areas, and it was really helpful to have people who were doing that alongside you.
That's true. Kind of like a teammate,
Yeah.
a true team, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about Minnesota. Like, so this has got to be, you recruited Minnesota really well when you were at UMD, and you've already got a couple verbal. Can we talk? I can't talk. I can say the verbal commitment. You can't. You have a couple verbal commitments already. Does Minnesota seem to be one of your spots that you want to be recruiting and increasing? Because it wasn't, let's be honest, when Coach Stone was there were not a lot of Minnesota kids there. A handful, couple, but not many. Do you expect more?
I would love to recruit out of Minnesota. We will recruit out of Minnesota. It's in part because such good hockey players are here.
Right.
I mean, I feel that way. I think a lot of people here know that. And for us, I think just taking a little bit of a wider look at it, when I look at our team, we want the best players wherever they come from. Right. And that's all over the world. But I think what's particularly important is, when you're at Harvard on campus, you're meeting people from every corner of the earth. And so I want our locker room to be a reflection of that. Obviously, hockey is only played in so many countries, but for us, that's our locker room should be a reflection of that. And we want to be a diverse group from a lot of different places. So we're traveling all over to try to find the best in a lot of different areas, whether that's on the East Coast, in Minnesota, Western Canada, Eastern Canada, Europe. We're all over, and we want to find the best. And I think not only is that how to create a really good hockey team, but it'll also be a reflection of what it looks like on our campus.
Yeah, that's true. Tell me about your first year. I mean, because it's not easy. It wasn't an easy transition from the old regime to you. But tell me about what you learned as being a head coach, because it's just they always say, once you don't know it till you actually know it. What was that? It had to be difficult and a challenge. Yeah,
I mean, I think any transition is, and I first got to Harvard and was kind of going in mid-August. So it was really, drinking from a fire hose is what everyone says. And it really rings true like that.
Literally,
that
you had
sense.
3 or 4 weeks before the season started.
It was really something. So looking back on that, I think, I kind of laugh now, and years from now, it'll be like, wow, how did we do that? But just because any transition is, there's just so much change to deal with, and it was happening quickly. And, you're meeting all these people, and, we have 23 players. And so there was just so much to
not
it.
Just the players, but the alumni and the administrator, everybody. And I'd say it's fairly high profile program.
Yeah, you're changing locations where you live.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
So I feel very fortunate that I knew the place. I felt like, okay, I'm coming back. I've been in that office suite before and given campus tours before, and I think that was very helpful in the fall. I am so grateful to Maura Kroll, because I think she set me up as much as you possibly could to be ready to be a head coach. She's
now a rival.
That's right. She is. You have
How
that correct.
crazy is that?
It's pretty crazy. But that was really when I went from Harvard to UMD, when she got the UMD job, she said, I wanna give you a lot, and I'm gonna put your feet to the fire, and it's gonna be trial by fire, and you're gonna learn a lot, and it's not always gonna be pretty, but that's kind of who she is. I think she's a great delegator, and I think she wants to help other people become leaders and head coaches if that's what they want to do. So she said that from day one, and that's what she did. So my 8 years at Duluth, I had a lot of responsibility, and when she was gone for U18s, I was the acting head coach. So I had so much of that experience, and I feel like I was extremely prepared for what I was asked to do starting this year.
What kind of coach are you? There's players coaches. You strike me as the good cop. Like, you are the good cop.
Oh, you think so?
Oh yeah, you strike me as the good cop. What are you? What kind of coach are you?
It's an interesting question. I think relationships are extremely important for my ability to coach. So, which has been, again, taking over a program, you're just meeting all these players at the same time. So,
and there's disruption in their life.
Yeah,
so it's not easy for them.
They're
either.
such a resilient group. I think any group that, has a coaching change or whatever it might be, our group has really shown so much resilience. And, but typically, your senior, you've recruited them since they were done with 10th grade. So by the time they're a senior, you've known them for at least 6 years.
Yeah.
And in some cases, 7,
right.
5th years at Duluth. But in this case, our players have known them all for 8 months, so you don't have that longer runway. And so it's been really fun to get to know them. Like, that's such a part of it that is at the foundation for me. And the relationships are so important, building those over time and building more trust. And ultimately, I'm going to be honest, like it's my job to speak the truth, tell our players what what I'm seeing, and have that come from a place of honesty, not, I want to make you feel good about how things are going necessarily. If that's not what needs to be said, like I'm not afraid to do that. And I think Maura does a great job of that. I learned that from her. And ultimately, I think it's, our job involves hard conversations, but ultimately that's a really good thing. And I think players appreciate that, and that's what they want. So that's my goal, is to have a relationship where you can do that, and then be really honest. And sometimes that's tough stuff. And I also want our players to hear what they're doing well, because I think it's really easy as a coach to point to all the things that we're not doing right. And it's equally, if not more important, for them to hear, hey, we asked you to do this, and look at on this video, we did it to perfection, and we want you to see that, because that builds confidence. As
opposed to not always like, okay, you did this wrong, this wrong, and beat them down. I get that.
So it's a mixture of things, but that's kind of probably how I'd summarize it.
All right, so let's go through. You've lived in Duluth your whole life. You've lived in Boston for 6-7 years or whatever. Give me some similarities to the two towns, because that's basically the two towns that you've lived in your whole life.
I know, I just flop back and forth between the two. I think the body of water has always been, when people talk about Duluth, it's Lake Superior. And for us at Harvard, and I mean, we're right on the ocean in Boston, but in Cambridge, you have the Charles River. It's always been a very grounding experience to be able to have that as part of your life, whether you're walking by that every day or, spending time there. The people, I think, they really love their sports teams. Boston, it's like title town, all those years when the Pats, Celtics, Bruins, everybody was winning, Red Sox too. And in Duluth, it's really, I think about Bulldog hockey, you feel that so much, but there's so much pride in that. And those things stand out in terms of the people and being really passionate about sports, whatever that is in their area.
Big time. My big takeaway was I've driven up to Bauer in New Hampshire. So I flew into Logan, drove up to Bauer, and I was like, this kind of reminds me of the North Shore. I mean, not exactly, but I had that feel.
Yeah, right? No, there are definitely areas. Yeah, it's really cool. Like when you're in Boston, you can get to, in a couple-hour drive, you can get to so many places. And especially
once you get out of the city.
Yeah, and like that's what's great is if you like the city, it's great. If you like to camp or do something outdoors, hike, whatever it is, you can pretty much do that within an hour or two of the area. So I mean that is really similar. There's
no Cape Cod though in Duluth. I'm still looking for it.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, we'll keep looking.
We'll keep looking for it. All right. So let's talk about the vision of your program. Well, tell me where you want to see Harvard in 2 years or 5 years or whatever. What is the plan?
Yeah. Well,
or better yet, what did you say in your job interview? What your plans were for the school, the program?
I believe very strongly that we have everything we need to have success and be back in the national picture. And that's as simple as it is. I think we have all the resources. We're very well supported. It's such a great place to play. Obviously, great education that comes with that. But we have all that we need, and that includes a really strong history. We've been to 11 NCAA tournaments, and that's where we want to get back to. So just building from where we are now back to that. And so much of that is going to happen through recruiting and the work we're doing now, and just getting better every year. But to me, that's where we should be. That's where we want to be. And that's where I want to get it to.
Tell me about your coaching staff. I think if someone's listening to this program, like tell me about your coaches and how they bring to Harvard.
So Meredith Roth is our associate head coach. Yeah.
Okay,
crazy,
sorry.
right? I mean, she gets a lot of
Crowell. I
right?
screwed that one up too.
Throw the names
for years.
Yeah, so Meredith came over from Holy Cross. She played at Shattuck, played at Providence, and then coached at both places. Was a head coach at St. Norbert College before she went to Holy Cross. So her background was just so perfect for what we're trying to do. And I was pretty sure I wanted a couple people who had been head coaches before and had that experience. And like I said, I felt really prepared for that. But just to have those people around you who know what it's like, have been in your shoes, the perspective they can offer is really important. So, and then coming over from Holy Cross, another great school. She's
Worcester.
Yeah, Worcester.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And she was on the U18 staff this past year that won gold and in Switzerland. So we missed her for part of the year, but she's just been very involved in USA Hockey, and so it's great to have that on staff too. And then Venla Hovey. She had come from, most recently, she was the head coach of the Riveters and the PHF, so she's also been a head coach. She's Finnish. She's been to multiple Olympics with the Finnish Olympic team.
Really?
So yeah, it was really, I think, again, had been a head coach.
That could open up doors in Europe.
It's great. Yeah, from a recruiting standpoint, like I said, we want to be going all over the world. And Venla, she had coached at Okanagan Hockey Academy out in Western Canada. So we've all kind of, we laugh sometimes. The areas that we cover are all kind of different and cross over a little bit, but not much. So that's been really helpful for us. And I think we're, with the three of us, really connected to a lot of different places. And, that's what Venla brings, is kind of Europe. And she lived in Western Canada for quite a while.
I think you're kind of a hockey nerd. Are they hockey nerds too, where they're just eating, breathing, drinking it all day long?
Yeah, we love it. It's
That's
been really
one of the
fun.
things that I've found when I meet with coaches, men's or women's, that are they're so into it. They can't get enough of it.
So fun. Yeah, and what's been really neat, like I said, is just having different connections and meeting different people through those guys. And we feel like we cover a lot. We just have such an array of experiences that it's really fun to tell stories and talk hockey and see where we've had crossover. But we cover a lot of different spots, and I think that's a big asset that we have.
How is Ivy League life different from WCHA life?
Oh, that's a good question. Ultimately, I think the ECAC and the WCHA are both so strong in women's hockey that, once you get into the day-to-day, it's so similar. We're all trying to create the best team that we possibly can and be extremely competitive. Probably the biggest difference is scholarships versus not. At the Ivy League schools, we don't have athletic scholarships. What we're offering is a different, experience, I guess. But I think that's probably the biggest difference when it comes to recruiting and the day-to-day. But really, when it comes down to it, it's very similar. And certainly at UMD, we were trying to recruit players who really valued their education as well.
Yeah.
So that's not a huge difference. I think it's an important part of the experience, but it's always been an important part of the experience to me.
But I would think one of the nice things is how close, except for Cornell, how close the schools are in proximity.
One really nice thing about the East Coast is that you can play. You could fill your schedule with non-conference and have it be 10 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
BU, BC, and Northeastern are all, we play the Beanpot with them. None of them are in our league. So you could play your whole non-conference slate and stay in the city of Boston. So it's really, that's a huge advantage. It's great for our schedule to be able to play other leagues, but not have to go too far. And certainly going a lot of places will be part of our experience too. We'll take flights and we'll come out here and it's really on my radar to make sure we go on an international trip once every 4 years, which is what we're able to do.
It's the NCAA rule, right?
Yeah, I think that in the Ivy is once every 4. I can't remember what parameters the NCAA has on that, but yeah, 1 in 4 is when you can do international. So that will be something that we offer as part of our experience, that we will do that.
And then at that point, every student athlete would have that, whether it's their senior year or their freshman year. That's kind of cool.
So that's on the radar, and I think so again, yes, we can locally. It's so nice from a travel perspective to be able to play a lot of different teams right there, and then it's also on our radar to make sure we're going a lot of going places.
This might be a little premature, but will we get a chance to see your Harvard Crimson play in Minnesota somewhere non-conference?
Oh yeah, that's happening at some
It
point.
is?
Yeah,
It hasn't happened
it's
yet.
not on the schedule.
It is not.
But we'll come to Minnesota.
It's going to happen.
Oh yeah,
we have to see you.
That's the crossover is so important. So like I said, I mean, we can get crossover locally, but it'll be important for us to play WCHA teams too, or whoever.
I'll be hunting schedules because I'll get to give you. I like to give you crap. So if you come here, I'm gonna take my opportunities when I get.
Can't wait.
Well, I've had a lot of fun. You have to get off to coach this weekend
That's right.
over at Bloomington. Thankfully, it's 6 minutes away.
Yep.
Thanks for your time today, Laura Bellamy, Harvard women's hockey coach.
Thanks, Tony.
You need to stay up out the streets if you can't take the heat. You need to stay up out the streets if you can't take the heat. Cause it get cold like Minnesota. Cold like Minnesota. Cold like Minnesota. Cold like Minnesota. Need to stay up out the streets.